Good morning. We're going to be working on rational numbers and the coordinate plane. You're going to need to have your math journals. So if you're sitting in seat number 4, go get the books for your group and come quickly back. You've got 30 seconds. Go. Okay, and you should be back in your seats by now. You should all have your books. And we are going to continue with the lesson. So what we are learning today. Today we will use the coordinate plane to find and position pairs of rational numbers. Yesterday I asked you what a rational number was, and many of you said a rational number is any integer, decimal, or fraction, and you were correct. Well, we worked with those in Unit 2 and Unit 1. We did some work with them there. We're going to do the same thing here in using rational numbers. Now, you already know how to plot the x and y coordinates when we're looking at whole numbers. You know how to position a rational number on a number line. If you have 1.5 or 1 3/4, we've worked on that when we did opposite numbers and looking for numbers on a number line. Well, it's going to be the same thing, except now we're going to be going both horizontally for the x-axis and vertically for the y-axis, and still looking for coordinate pairs. Why we are learning this? Well, we're learning this because we need to be able to plot and use rational numbers. That's an important skill for both math and science. Data does not always use whole numbers. Sometimes the data is in fractional amounts or in decimals, and you have to be able to plot that either on a grid or be able to put it on a number line. And how you will know that you have learned this? Well, you will be able to find and plot the x and y coordinates in the correct quadrants. So here we go. We're going to start first with problem of the day. So this is page 273 in your math journal. Turn to that page now, and you're going to copy what you see here in problem of the day. You have 6 set of coordinate points. You need to tell me the quadrants you would find each of those in. If you need to review what the quadrants were, go back to page 261, and it shows you the number for the different quadrants, so that you'll be able to identify which quadrant each one belongs to. You have 1 minute starting now. Okay, and you should be finished by now. So let's take a look at -3, -4. Those coordinate points. What quadrant is that? Well, if x is negative and y is negative, I know that I'm going to be to the left of 0 on the x-axis and below 0 on the y-axis. So that's going to be quadrant 3. And remember, we're writing these in Roman numerals. So there's quadrant 3. I have 12 comma, -5. This is x, this is y. When my x is a positive and my y is a negative, I know I'm to the right on the number line, the horizontal number line, and I am going below 0. So that's going to put me in quadrant 4. Okay, when x is positive and y is negative, that's quadrant 4. Now, I have x coordinate is 5, y coordinate is 8. Well, when my x is positive and my y is positive, I know I'm to the right of 0 on the horizontal number line, and I'm above 0 on the vertical number line. So this is going to be quadrant 1. My next one, I have 2, -12. Well, I'm going to look at this. And if this was quadrant 4 and x is positive and y is negative, then I'm going to say this is also quadrant 4. And now I have -5 for x and 10 for y. Well, I don't have another one here that has that. But I know if my x is a negative, I'm to the left of 0 on the horizontal number line, and my y is going to be above 0. So that has to be quadrant 2. And my last one, when I have x is -7, y is -8. Well, I'm looking at the fact I've got 2 negatives, and that's what I had here. So this is going to be quadrant 3. Hopefully you got all of these correct. I'm willing to bet that you did. So if you didn't, make sure you fix them. And if you have not written your objective yet, you're going to write your objective now. You have 1 minute to do so, starting now. Okay? Now, on to teacher input. So I'm looking at the directions. Use the coordinate plane to name or plot the ordered pair. Well, the ordered pair is what I have down here. And I need to plot the ordered pair for point G. Here's point G. Plot and label the point H, and this is what I'm looking for here. So first I need to name the ordered pair. So I'm looking at my x. Remember, you always look for x first. And this is -3. This is -4. But I've got something halfway between. So this has to be -3.5. So my x is -3.5, comma, and now I'm going to read my y coordinate. And this is -3.5, and this is 1. So x is -3.5, y is 1. Now, the second one, plot and label the point H. 2 5/10 and -3 5/10. So I need to find x first. 2 5/10. Well, there's 2. I have an interval marker, and that's 3. So this has to be 2 5/10. It's halfway between 2 and 3. And I need to now find -3 5/10. So I know that's going to be on my y-axis. It's a negative, so I need to be going down. Okay? So I see -3, I see -4, -3 5/10 5/10 needs to be right here. So I plotted the point, and now I'm going to label it H. And I'm going to double check just to make sure. I need 2 and 5/10. Here's 2 and 5/10. My y is a negative, so I'm going to go down 3 and 5/10. And yes, that is exactly correct. So let's go now to Structured Guided Practice, page 274. And the directions are: use the coordinate plane to name or plot the ordered pair. Well, the first thing I need to do is name the ordered pair for point Q. So looking at point Q, if you are an odd number, today you are A's. If you are an even number, today you're B's. So odds are A, evens are B. A's, take a look at Q, and A's, tell B's what that X coordinate should be. Look at your X axis and what is the location for that point Q on the X axis. Ready? Go. Okay, and I am willing to bet that A's, you said it was 4 and 5/10 or 4.5, and that would be right here, halfway between 4 and 5. So good job. Now I've got my X coordinate, so I can put this here. My X coordinate is 4 and 5/10 or 4.5, comma. Now I need to find my Y coordinate. And B's, tell A's what the location on the Y axis is for point Q. Ready? Go. Okay. And again, I'm willing to bet you said on the Y axis, if I go across, this is 0.4. So excellent. That is correct. Now you need to graph and label the point on the coordinate grid, and the point is A, and you need to find -3 on the x-axis and -4 1/2 on the y-axis. So B's, tell A's where you're going to find -3 on the x-axis. Ready? Go. Okay, and if you said it's going to be right here, there's -3 on the x-axis, you're absolutely correct. Now, A's, tell B's where you need to go to find -1 1/2 on the y-axis. Ready? Go. And if you said you need to go down to between -1 and -2 and place your dot right here, you're absolutely correct. And then you're going to label this A. That's point A. So there's -3 and -1 1/2. Nice job. Okay, let's go on to final check for understanding. Plot and label the point on the coordinate grid. You have, oh, first we need to read the ordered pair for point R. So let's do this one together, and then everyone, you're going to work on the second one, and then I'll check back in with you to see how you did. Okay, so ready? Let's look for point R, and I'm going to read my x-axis first. I'm going to follow along until I come to this indicator line that is the point is on, and I'm going to follow it down to my x-axis, and that's negative 4.5, or 4 1/2. Negative 4 1/2. I could also say 4 5/10, comma. And now I'm going to go back to this point, and I'm going to follow this horizontal line all the way over to the x-axis, and that is point 1. So my coordinate points are negative 4 5/10, or 4 1/2, and 1. So now you're going to you're going to plot and label the point on the coordinate grid. You're going to label it S, and this is what you're looking for. 4 5/10 on the x-axis, and negative 2 25/100 on the y-axis. Okay, so work on this now. I'll check back in with you shortly. Go. And remember, you're working alone. Go. Okay, so I'm looking at my indicators, and here's 4, here's a halfway mark, here's 5, and I want 4 5/10, or 4 1/2, and that would be right here for x. Now I need to find negative 2 25/100. Where would I find that? I know that this is negative 2, this is negative 2 1/2, this is negative 3. Where would I find 25/100? Well, if this is a half, or 0.5, or 50, 1/2 of a half would be here. Or another way to think of it is, if I have 25/100, that can reduce to 1/4 as a fraction. Well, if this is 1/2 here, this has to be 1/4. So I've got my answer now. This is 4 1/2, and this is the line for negative 2. This is negative 2 1/2. So my point has to be halfway between those two, and it would be right about here. And I'm going to label this point S. Looks like a 5, but it's really an S. There you go. Okay. So, nice. Hopefully that didn't trip up too many people to figure that one out. So now let's go on to student practice. Oh, and we got a number of different things to do here. So for student practice, I'm going to take a look at what I need to do for number 1 first, because my directions are the same. Use the coordinate plane to name or plot. So I'm going to do one or the other. The ordered pair. And number 1, name the ordered pair for point D. Well, here's point D. I'm going to look at my x-axis, and I notice again, I have an interval marker, and then I have negative 1, and I have an interval marker, and negative 2, and an interval marker, and negative 3. So I know that these interval markers halfway between my whole numbers are going to be half of the distance, or 0.5, or 1/2. So here is point D. I'm going to follow this down, and here's negative 4, here's negative 5. So this has to be negative 4.5, or you could say 4 at negative 4 1/2. I'm going to write it as a decimal, comma. Now I need to find, that's my x coordinate, I need to find the y. So I'm going to go back to my point. This time I'm going to follow this horizontal line to the x-axis, and that is point 4. So there's my coordinate points. negative 4.5, and 4. Now, for the second one, plot and label point S, 2.5 and negative 1.5. So I know this 2.5, if it's a positive, it's going to be here in the first quadrant, where my X is positive and my Y is positive, except this is a negative. So at least my X-axis, I'm on the right side. If I need a positive X and a negative Y, then I'm looking at quadrant 4. Positive, negative, positive, negative. So 2.5 is here. Negative 1.5. I'm going to have to go below 0. There's 1/2, there's 1, there's negative 1.5. So I'm going to put my point here. And this is S. Now, 3, name the ordered pair for point H. Well, here's point H, and I need to name the ordered pair. So I'm going to look at this dot, and I'm going to follow it all the way down. And my X-axis, this is 4.5, or 4.5. Comma. Now I need to find my Y coordinate. So I'm going to go back to the dot, and I'm going to follow this horizontal line to the Y-axis, and that is 5. So my coordinate points are 4.5 and 5. Okay, so I've got this one done, this one done, this one done. Now, I want you to work on 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to name the ordered pair for point J, for point T, and then plot and label for point C. Okay, get ready, go. Okay, so that should be 2 minutes. I should have said start the timer. I did not do that, so if you're still working on it, then just follow along with what we're doing. So number 4, name the ordered pair for point J. Here's point J. And I know I need to start with my X first, so I'm going to follow along until I come to the line that this point is plotted on. And I'm going to read where that is on the X-axis. And that's 2.5. So I'm going to put 2.5. And now I need to go along the horizontal line to find where this is on the Y-axis. And that is a negative 3. So there are my coordinate points. 2.5 or 2.5. X coordinate, Y coordinate is negative 3. And I'm going to do the same thing with number 5. Name the ordered pair for point T. Well, here's point T. I need my X coordinate first. So I'm going to follow along on the X-axis until I come to the line that this point is plotted on. And then I'm going to read where that is on the X-axis. And this is negative 4.5. So I have negative 4 point, or 4.5, or 4 and 5/10. And now I need my Y. So I'm going to go back to this point. I'm going to follow along the horizontal line, and I see that my Y is negative 5. Okay, so I have my ordered pair plotted for point T, and the last one you needed to do was plot and label C. So I need negative 3 and 25 hundredths, and -4 75/100ths. Okay, so here's 3. Here's 3.5 or 3.5. Remember, we said 25/100ths is 1/4. So I know I'm going to be in between these two lines here. And I need -4 75/100ths. So I'm going to come down. Here's -4, here's -5.5. 75/100ths would be halfway between these two. So I've got -3 1/4 here, or 3 25/100ths here, and I'm going to come down to right about here. And I'm going to label that point C. Okay, good job. Now, I am going to put some extra practice work here, and the substitute is going to hand out the extra practice paper. So pause here until everyone has the handout for the extra practice page, and then we will continue. So pause here and continue when everyone has their work. Okay, you should all have your papers now, and you have the side of the paper that shows points B, I, J, and R. And the directions use the coordinate plane to name the ordered pair for each point. Halves fall between two grid lines and may be written as 5/10 or 1/2. So I have point B. And again, I'm going to look at where the point is, and I'm going to read where that is on the x-axis. Here's -3, here's -4. -4, this is on -3 5/10. And now I'm going to go back to the point, and I'm going to follow this line along to the y-axis, and I see that my y-coordinate is 1. So I have -3 5/10 and 1. And now I want you to work together, and I want you to find the coordinates for I, J, and R. Okay, pause the video here. Take about 3 to 4 minutes to make sure you have all of those coordinates, and then check back in. Ready? 4 minutes, pause here, begin. Okay, so you should have all of this finished now, so let's check and see how you did. I'm looking at point I, and I'm going to follow this vertical line all the way down to the x-axis, and I can see that that is on 2. That's plotted at 2 on the x-axis. I'm going to go back up to the point, and now I'm going to follow along on this horizontal line, and I can see that this is between 4 and 5 on the y-axis, and this halfway mark, that's 4.5. So my y-coordinate is 4 5/10 or 4 1/2. Okay, and I'm willing to bet you all got the same thing as that. So now I'm going to look at J. And again, you always look for your x coordinate first. So I'm going to look at where this point is, and I'm going to go up to the x-axis. And I'm going to see that this is between 4 and 5. So I know that this point is 4.5 or 4.5 on the x-axis. So I'm going to label that here, 4.5. And now I'm going to go back to that point for J, and I'm going to follow that horizontal line across to the y-axis, and I can see that my y-coordinate is 2. So I have my coordinates for x and y for J, and that leaves me only with R. And I'm going to write R over here, because that's going to be hard for you to see. And again, I'm going to find my x coordinate first. So I'm going to the point, and I'm going to follow this vertical line up. And I can see that this is at -2 on the x-axis. I'm going to go back to the point, and I'm going to follow this horizontal line across. And I can see that this is -3.5 on the y-axis. Okay, and I'm thinking -2, -3.5, that makes sense because this coordinate, x is negative, y is negative. So I have my points B, I, J, and R. So let's take a look at one more. And this is on the other side of your paper. And again, same thing. We are looking at grid lines that halfway between may be written as 5/10 or 1/2. And I have points 6, 8, 6, points S, H, Z, and Q. So we're going to do this first one together, and then you're going to do the remaining 3, and then we'll check back in. So I'm looking at point S is here. I'm going to follow this vertical line down, and I can see that my first coordinate, my x coordinate, is 3 on the x-axis. And I'm going to go back to point S, and I'm going to follow this horizontal line across, and I can see that my y coordinate is 5. So I have 3, 5. Now, I want you to pause the video here. I'm thinking maybe I cut off the very last one because I'm seeing T and there's no T here. So I'm going to write this in here because I want you doing that one also. So you're finding the points for H, Z, Q, and T. Is there a D missing too? It looks like maybe there's a D that when I took a copy of this page, I cut that one off. So take 5 minutes, pause the video here, and find the coordinates for those points, label them, and then we'll check back in. Okay? Pause the video, 5 minutes, and begin. Okay, here we go. And I just looked at the copy that you all have, and it does not put D, T and D, but we'll go ahead and do those anyway. So now H, again, you're going to go to the point and you're going to follow that vertical line up, and that's at 1 5/10 or 1 1/2. That's your x coordinate. Okay? My y coordinate, I'm going to follow this horizontal line over, and that's at -3. So my x coordinate is 1 1/2. My y coordinate is -3 for H. Now I'm looking at Z. And again, I'm going to find my point. I'm going to follow that vertical line up, and I can see that my x coordinate is 5. I'm going to go back to my point. I'm going to follow that horizontal line over to the y-axis, and I can see that my coordinate point is -4. Now, I'm looking at point Q. Again, I'm going to follow this vertical line up, and I can see that my x coordinate is between -3 and -4. So this is going to be -3.5. That was not your bell, by the way. And I go back to the point, and I'm going to follow this horizontal line across, and I see that my y coordinate is -3. Okay? Now, I'm going to go to T. Even though your page doesn't have it, I did ask you to do T and D. So I'm going to find this point. I'm going to follow this vertical line down, and I can see that my x coordinate is 1 and 1/2, or 1.5, or 1 5/10. They all mean the same thing. Okay? And I'm going to follow this horizontal line across, and I can see that my y coordinate is 1. And my last one is D. So I'm going to follow this vertical line down, and I can see that my x coordinate is -3.5, or -3 5/10. And I'm going to now follow this vertical line, horizontal line across, and I can see that my y coordinate is 5. So for D, I have -3 5/10, and for my y coordinate, I have 5. Okay? So now, there should still be some time left in this period. If you have not finished your problem of the week, take the remainder of the time and do so. If you did not finish last night's homework, take the rest of the time and do so. Remember, all of the work is going to be collected by the substitute, and I'm going to have either Mrs. Reed or Mr. Miller pick up all of the work you turned in today. So it's all going to be graded over the Thanksgiving break. The last day you can turn in late work to me and have it count for your second quarter grades is November 30th. So take this time to finish any missing work. Okay? Have a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you when we return on Monday. Have a great vacation.